हरि ओम। शं नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शं नो भवत्वर्यमा शं न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शं नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। प्राच्यपाश्चात्य देशानां समन्वय विधायकं शांतं सौम्य गुणोपेतं कृष्णं वंदे जगद्गुरुम्। ओम अस्मद्गुरुभ्यो नमः। Welcome to all brothers and sisters. Once again, I ask you to excuse us for the delay in starting the program due to unexpected technical some problem. So now it is solved. So we can start our class now. So we have been discussing and studying rather about the vairagya or non-attachment. So in the vairagya as explained by Patanjali, there is the highest type of vairagya, which is the most required for practice. But during our practice, we also come across other vairagya, which is also vairagya non-attachment, but it is not exactly the highest vairagya. So it is identified, there are two types of non-attachment or vairagya. One is apara vairagya, that means the lower type of non-attachment. And the other is paravairagya, the higher type of non-attachment. So while explaining about this, Patanjali has also given in this aphorism 19, which we are studying still. So about this lower type of vairagya, so those who are, there are two types of people who are practicing this vairagya. And for these two categories of people, who are called videhas, those who are having no bodies, and those are prakrutilayas, the second one, those who have merged in nature. So these two are being explained to us in this aphorism. Master has very widely explained this because this is very important for us to have a proper understanding with the known examples. Then only we can understand this more clearly. Because unless we have clear understanding of these two levels of vairagya. So actually what is required is the higher one. But during our practice, during course of years, we may, most of us, we may fall into the lower type of vairagya, where once again we can be categorized as videhas and prakritilayas. So, when we speak of vairagya or non-attachment, what must be, what is it that is to be achieved by practicing vairagya in its true sense, higher vairagya? So, what is the benefit? What is the achievement? What is the result? What is that we can expect when we practice vairagya? The one thing is that we must experience a betterment in our experience, in our life. So, there should be a betterment and an improvement in our existence. And also, there should be a betterment in the feeling of others who are around us to feel better in our presence. If we are really practicing vairagya or non-attachment, two things. One is we should be able to feel more comfortable and more better in our life. Better means not in the materialistic things. Better means how we feel. If you ask me, are you happy? Then if I can answer you completely that yes, I am quite happy, not only just from the periphery. Periphery means, outside layers. From my inner core, if I can confirm that I experience happiness, I am happy, without any doubt, 100%. Then it is okay. So for what we have to practice vairagya? In the real vairagya, in the higher one, is that always there should be an improvement, a betterment in our existence, in our experience. Nobody can at any time say that now I have attained perfection, I am all perfect. You cannot say, nobody can say. It is always an effort to get more and more perfection in any dimension, in any aspect of our daily life. What is the reason for our sadhana? Our sadhana, our spiritual practice, sadhana, which is internal. That is, sadhana is not external, from inside. So what is the purpose of this is to attain more and more perfection, more betterment in our life. When we attain more perfection, more improvement in our quality, then we can make a forward step in the process of our evolution. Evolution means not the evolution just of the body or the physical matter, but evolution of consciousness. This is where the modern science lost. The process of evolution is explained in the modern science. But what is explained in modern science is only about the form aspect. But how can a form evolve without the evolution of consciousness? This is not answered by the modern science regarding the theory of evolution. It is the consciousness which should evolve. So this practice of yoga is for the evolution of consciousness, for a betterment. Evolution is improvement or betterment. So this is a continuous process. Nobody can say my evolution is finished. Now I have reached a stage, there is no more necessity for more evolution. That is not true. It is a continuous process. For every atom, for every solar system, for every soul, it is a continuous process. It is like a journey. So what is the purpose of practicing non-attachment or vairagya? The purpose is to make us more and more better than before. So two things. By practicing, the practitioner should get betterment in himself, in his life, in his experience. And also it should reflect with the experience of beings around, because we are in contact. We are in the society, we are in the contact. So the other person also, the persons around us also should feel better than before in our presence. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, what the Lord says, how can we identify a devotee? So the 12th chapter deals with devotion. So who is a devotee, real in its true sense? How he can be identified? How can we identify? Not by any external appearance or all these things. How can we identify internally? The Lord says there are two things through which we can identify a devotee. What are these? One is a devotee, real devotee, he never gets disturbed by the presence of anybody or any environment. He never gets disturbed by the presence of any other person or in any type of environment. He is not at all disturbed. That is one aspect. The second part of this is that no other person will be disturbed by the presence of this person. So, a person who never gets disturbed by the behavior or by the presence of any other person, and also who never disturbs any other person around through his behavior. These two things. Then you can identify a devotee by these two things. understand. It is not difficult to identify a devotee, but it is difficult to keep these two things constant in practice. It is not difficult, but it is simple actually. As I told you several times, to be happy is very simple, but to be simple is very difficult. That is the reason. So unless you are very simple, you cannot really make a progress in practice. So what is the result of practicing? What is that we achieve by practicing this higher Vairagya, the real Vairagya is that these are the two things. There is no other thing to achieve or that is achieved. You see, somebody feels that by practicing Vairagya for some years, if I get some powers, nothing like that. There are some people who have so many aspirations to fulfill, and then they feel that the practice of yoga or practice of Vairagya, all these things are to achieve those, to fulfill those aspirations. But this is not like that. In reality, to improve the quality of our living in all the layers of our consciousness, and this will reflect in how we behave with others around us. So that is the purpose. So this is so there is no question of any profit. What is the benefit or profit we achieve by practicing Vairagya? There is no question of benefit or profits. Only you will be fit, not no profit or no benefit, you will be fit in its true sense. You should be fit enough. What is meant by fitness? Is it by physically developing muscles and all these things? That is okay. Physical fitness, that is okay. But beyond that, fitness in a higher level of consciousness, that is important. Without that, what is the use of practicing to develop muscles and develop physically strong and all these things? But that is enough, no use without the fitness, internal fitness. So therefore, no profit, no benefit, you cannot expect or anticipate. Because expectation and anticipation, these are the enemies. So if you are really practicing Vairagya, you will have no expectation and anticipation. You will do what you have to do with ease. That is what the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita. Yoga, practice of yoga is to live with ease. That is very much required for us. So that if anybody feels that by practicing yoga, by practicing Vairagya for some years, we may get some powers, no such things. They are an illusion. If you want to do anything for powers, then you will be disappointed. Some person asked Master, what is that I gain by practicing pranayama, by practicing yoga and all this? Master said, you will not gain anything. Then what? You will lose what is to be lost. We have so many things in us which are to be lost, which are to be given up. Because You know, for example, malice, anger, malice, hatred, all these things are there. If they are allowed to stay within ourselves, what happens? We are destroyed. So we have to get rid of these things. So by practicing yoga or non-attachment, vairagya, you will gradually get rid of those unwanted things which are there with you for a long time. It's not that you'll gain something new. Nothing. The result, if you start thinking of the result, then it is not vairagya at all. You have to do what you have to do. Do it with devotion, do it with happiness, but not anticipating some result, what you feel. So all that what we are doing in our daily life, so much of result-oriented action, result is not in your control. You are expected to do your lot. That is what always explained in Bhagavad Gita, Patanjali. You are expected to do your lot. That is the only thing. Suppose you are a student, you are attending an examination. What you have to do? You have to present yourself, answer the questions, present yourself. Whether you get very high marks or not, the result is not in your hands. You cannot. So if all the time you keep thinking of the result, how many marks I get, then you lose your time in studying the subject. So you lost most of your time. So automatically what happens, you will be confused in the examination and you cannot answer properly. See? So therefore, vairagya is the real thing where you are always, there is a purpose, there is a higher purpose. So the purpose what happens is, if you have all other things, considerations, then what happens before you reach the goal, you are distracted from the track. Side. You will be drawn to some other side and you cannot reach the goal. Before reaching the goal, you will be distracted. So, it will stop in the middle. Because when you have an idea in your mind about the benefit of the result, if you keep thinking of the result, then you are blocked and you cannot make a progress towards the higher purpose. You know? So, what is the highest benefit or purpose? I'll stop here. So, what is the highest thing? What is the highest, attainment by practice of vairagya is that we are free from any sort of expectation, and we are free from to anticipate or to desire anything. So therefore, last week, we have quoted the sentence by Jesus Christ. What is that? Blessed are those who believe. blessed are those who believe. That means without a, because if the master says, or Patanjali says, you practice vairagya, non-attachment, then you will experience improvement. Then immediately somebody asks, what is the proof for that? Because mostly in our modern life, for everything we want to have a proof. How can you have a proof? Because your consciousness is limited. So how can you have a proof from the higher? You know, it is just like a magician when there is a magic show. So all the people are attracted towards the magician. All the attention of all the people is drawn towards the magician. For 1 hour or like that, he will control all the people. The attention of all the people is controlled by the magician. Eagerly we will be looking at him only. But after the show is finished, just we come out, then if anyone is concerned about the magician, is there any connection between you and the magician after coming out? So therefore, all these anticipations, so what is the purpose? What is the purpose of our practicing vairagya? So it is for a higher purpose. So to know the higher purpose, we are to experience this higher purpose, to know the higher purpose. The instrument is given to us. The body is the instrument. You see. So our mind, all the apparatus, what are all there in the apparatus? Our mind is there, and our buddhi is there. Buddhi is discriminative will, and chitta is there. That means the mind that with behavior. And ahankara is there. Ahankara means ego, or the I amness. It's what we call I am. And logic is there. All these things. But all these things are not sufficient for us. Because all these things form a part of this, but not complete. How a part can be equal to total? A part cannot measure the total. So, for our apparatus is not enough for right understanding. That's what we have to realize. So, the understanding should flow into the apparatus. This is what we have to do is we have to keep the apparatus fit enough to receive the flow. That is the one thing. That is yoga. Purpose of yoga practice is this is the purpose. We have to keep the apparatus fit enough to receive the flow from the higher. For example, this higher, what is the higher? Just what we call higher is the I am. That is the higher. Highest actually, in fact. The highest, the innermost core of our consciousness, the highest is what we call I am, which you call spirit or the soul. That is the I am. That is the highest. And therefore, these apparatus cannot have a control on this highest aspect. It cannot control that. Apparatus is required, but this apparatus cannot control anything of the highest part, that is I am, that is beyond. So, what all we learn, we learn so many things. We learn so many sciences, or we learn physiology, psychology, medical science, or hygiene, body, about mind, all these things. We may study physics, we may study many sophisticated sciences, all these sciences. But all this, what we study, will be useful how we make our apparatus more perfect. That is the only thing. But we cannot, but all our study cannot control the higher thing in us, the I am. That is beyond this control, beyond the control of all this. Because that is beyond the apparatus. Our apparatus is not ourselves, you see. So first of all, we have to remember, our apparatus is not ourselves. We are higher than the apparatus. So if Master has given a wonderful example that if you take a lens and put it focus towards the sun's rays, so the sun's rays can be focused through the lens, and we can enjoy that, we can use that. But at the same time, we have to remember, can this lens in any way control the rays of the sun? It is not. So what we can do is, we can focus properly to make use of it. Proper use, that is the only thing. Similarly, what we have achieved by making an alignment of this apparatus, a better use of this apparatus, is that we have, what do you want to achieve? The liberation. What is liberation then? Liberation is not under our control. You cannot achieve by yourself through all this apparatus. This apparatus is to make you fit to receive what is flowing into you. But you cannot, with this apparatus, you cannot achieve something, or you cannot control anything else. So, for example, you want to work in the field to grow your grains, food grains. So what you have to do? You have to work in the field. You have to plow the field, you have to plow the ground, and you have to make the soil fit, and you have to put the seeds. All these things you can do. But what about rain? That is not under your control. That is controlled by some higher force of nature. So you cannot control all these things. You cannot control the goal. Only you have to do how you can keep everything perfect to receive that. That is the so yoga practice also is like that, practice of yoga. So therefore, it is not with desire that you can achieve this. You have to grow over the desire. You have to get sublimated and you have to get above the desiring nature. Otherwise, you will fall down. That is the only thing. Suppose if I desire to have liberation, but that is also desire. Some people think that I don't desire anything. Only desire I have is to get liberation, but that is also desire. If you have desire, you cannot get liberation. Where there is a desire, where there is an expectation, then you are bound. How can you have liberation? You will be more and more tied down. You want liberation, but you are tying yourself down by having a desire and all these things and expectations and all this. So you have to get rid of this. Therefore, happiness, peace, all these things, nobody can claim or nobody can purchase, nobody can grab. These are the things which one can get from another. Mutually you can get it. I can make you happy, you can make me happy. I can make you peaceful, you can make me... So through mutuality, we can get peace, we can experience happiness, but you cannot claim as a right, it is my right to be happy. If you think of rights, you can never be happy. There are two aspects. One is right, one is duty. He who attends to the duty without thinking about the right only can be happy. But he who thinks always the right can never be happy. You see in the world, in the mundane world, in any field, fighting for the rights, the whole life you will be fighting, but you have no happiness. Fighting and fighting, what for? There are many people foolish to think that our life is a battlefield. It is not a battlefield. You made it a battlefield. With whom you are fighting? You are expected to make it a field of good action and good experience. Nature has given this apparatus for that, but you made it complicated and you started to make a battle with whom? With yourself only. We think that we are fighting with the enemies, but where are the enemies? Master E.K. has given in the small book Prayers and Meditations, he has given one of this meditation. Enemies are, where are the enemies? Persons are outside and enemies are inside you. We call some person enemy. But unfortunately, person is outside. Person cannot enter into you. But enemies are inside and persons are outside. We have to meditate upon this. One fellow who is suffering from enemies. So this fellow came to Master CVV. Master, I came to you, I want your help. So what is it that you want? He said, I have so many enemies. I have to get all the enemies killed. Then I can be happy. Very good. Master said, okay, let us kill them. Come, I will I'll tell you the method. Then he was very inquisitive. And then Master said, how many enemies you have? Make a list of enemies. So it became a big list, starting from the neighbor. And everybody who is the enemy, next the one next to him will be his enemy. So he made a list, brought it to Master. Master said, among this list, select those in the priority, in which order we have to destroy them. Again, make the list in that priority list. Or make a priority list. Who is number one? This is the number one. Bring a photograph of that fellow. Master said, oh yes. He said, of course. He brought a photograph. I was thinking that Master, by giving the photograph, Master will just make something on the photograph that fellow will die there. That is this fellow is expecting. So he brought the photograph. Then Master said, you take this photo to the framework place, you make a very good, beautiful frame for this photo and bring it back. So he did the same. Then what next? What is the next step? Then Master said, keep this photo on your altar where you are doing your prayer and worship every day. You keep this photo. Keeping the photo of enemy on the altar. Yes, that is the only way to kill your enemy. It is not so easy. But of course, since he has no other alternative to follow the Master instruction of Master, so he has put it on the altar. And Master said, okay, from now onwards, meditate upon this fellow as God. How can it be possible, Master? You make it possible, then only enemy will be. You want the enemy to be destroyed. He will get destroyed only by doing this. Do it for 40 days. Meditate that picture as God, as your God. So he doesn't like it, but he has no other alternative. So after 40 days he came back. Now where is your enemy? He disappeared from his mind. When you started to meditate upon that fellow as form of God, then no more enmity. The enmity is gone. So then the Master said, so first the enemy is killed now. One enemy is killed. So you do the same process with all these enemies. Then his eyes were opened. Where are the enemies? Enemies are outside. Enemies are inside and persons are outside. Always persons are outside and enemies are inside you, in your mind. So you have to eliminate from here, not from there. There is no use by killing somebody. You have to eliminate the enmity here, in your mind, in yourself. So for that purpose you have to practice non-attachment, this Vairagya. And therefore, all these things can be attained, the peace and happiness, by mutuality. One cannot make himself happy without having a good symbiosis, good relation with other persons. If somebody thinks I don't need any person, I will be of myself, so I want to be happy. How can you be happy? So therefore, all these apparatus, you are given the eyes, ears, and all these apparatus. All these apparatus is given to us by the force of nature. So what is the lesson from the nature? What does the nature teaches us through all these things by giving this apparatus? Nature has given all what we have is given by nature. It is not that we gain this by ourselves. No, you cannot gain. It is given to you. It is not got by you or purchased by you. You cannot. See. So, what the nature says is, Chakena ekena amritatva manasya. There is one sentence in the Upanishad. Chagena ekena amritatva manasya. It means you will attain immortality only by Chagena ekena means only by giving up. Benevolent. Give up. If you want to take and take, you cannot attain immortality. You have to giving in all levels. Tyaga means benevolence, charity. So you will attain immortality only through charity and benevolence, not otherwise. That is the meaning of that sentence from the Upanishad. This is the very simple formula. But unfortunately, this formula is never applied by so many people. They want to, what do you want? So they want to attain this immortality. Everybody wants to be immortal. Why we are mortals? Why we can't be immortals? Is God so a partial fellow? He has a partiality for us to make us mortals and to make devas immortals. All the devas are immortal. Why we should be mortal? Mortal means those who will have to die. Why? Can't we be immortal? We cannot attain immortality, yes. We can also get immortality, but how? By Tyaga. By charity, by benevolence. Spirit of sacrifice. So, spirit of sacrifice is the real key to attain immortality. Spirit of sacrifice. And the spirit of sacrifice can be developed by practicing Vairagya. That is why Vairagya is so important. Spirit of sacrifice. So, spirit of sacrifice will make you, lead you in the spirit of cooperation. There are two things, spirit of competition, spirit of cooperation. Very, very clearly you can demarcate. Spirit of competition, spirit of cooperation. Why the whole of humanity is suffering today? Because of more and more increase of the spirit of competition. Do you accept or not? Honestly, we have to accept this. Spirit of competition in every field of our life. What is happening due to spirit of competition? Our behavior is getting diabolic. We become like devils. Spirit of competition, right from the beginning. We are training our children also from the very beginning like that. Spirit of competition. You can never be happy even for a moment as long as you are entangled in the spirit of competition. Because you live in fear. How can you be happy? Competition. Unfortunately, many people think that this world is world of competition. You made it. The foolish human being. Nature has given the spirit of cooperation, not competition. Mind that. Spirit of cooperation. That is there in the nature. All the kingdoms of nature, the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, animal kingdom and human kingdom, all the kingdoms, they can survive by the spirit of competition now, by the spirit of cooperation only. By the spirit of competition they will get destroyed. They will survive and they can live happily only by the spirit of cooperation. That is there in nature, the law of nature. You take for the example of our own body. Master has given a wonderful example. Huh? You take the example of the parts of our body. Suppose we are at dining table. We are eating food with our hands, using our hands. Suppose you felt itching on one of your hands. Then only the other hand can help this hand. If your right hand you feel itching, you have to use your left hand to scratch it. Can your right hand scratch itself when there is itching on the right hand? You make this experiment. If your body has to move from one place to one place, your legs have to work. Okay. But if your legs have to work, your lungs have to breathe constantly. You take every part of your body separately. Your existence is made possible by cooperation or by competition. Just think of this. Your existence in this life, in this body, in your life, you can continue your life by competition or by cooperation of the parts of your body. We have, from the very childhood, we have some stories to make us understand. One day, every part of our body started to claim that I am more important than the other part of the body. I am most important. The mouth said, yes, if I am not there, if the tongue and myself, there is no possibility to take food, then how all the parts can work? So like this, every part of our body is claiming that part is more important than other part. And what happened? Everybody is on strike. Don't work. No work. We don't work. We don't want to work. Strike. Okay. What happened? This fellow will go more and more weaker. Because the mouth refused to take the food, the hands refused to bring the food. So what happens then? So we have to accept that it is only spirit of cooperation, not spirit of competition. No rights, only duties. Fighting for the right will make you diabolic, devilish. Not to fight for the right. Keep working to fulfill your duty. Cooperate. So spirit of cooperation. So spirit of sacrifice. So if you want to attain immortality, you have to inculcate, you have to develop spirit of sacrifice, spirit of cooperation, and no other means. For this purpose, you need to practice non-attachment, Vairagya. Now you understand why Patanjali has given Vairagya as one of the important instruments for us to practice yoga. Vairagya, non-attachment. The real higher type of non-attachment. So, first of all, everybody requires is peace of mind, peace. Live in peace. But how can you live in peace? You know, now how is the world? Why you are fighting? Fighting for peace. Is it not foolish? When you are fighting, how there can be peace? Fighting for peace. Ridiculous. So human logic is human mind is so complicated. So get rid of this complication, you need to practice Abhyasa and Vairagya. These two, that is why Patanjali said, Abhyasa Vairagya Abhyam Tan Nirodha. You can attain suspension of the behavior of mind by applying the two instruments. One is Abhyasa, that means repetition, and Vairagya, that means non-attachment. It is clear now. So, there are hundreds of examples Master has given from our daily life to know this very clearly. So, Patanjali has brought us towards this Vairagya, and then he has explained in this 19th aphorism that then there are two types of practitioners. One type of practitioner is called Virehas, one group of practitioners, one category of practitioners. And another category are Prakritilayas. In both of these cases, they have always Bhava Pratyaya. So that is exactly what is given in the 19th aphorism. Bhava Pratyaya. That we have studied this aphorism. Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layana. Bhava Pratyaya, basis to take birth. Bhava Pratyaya means this is the basis to take a birth, to take a new body. When we lost a body, and what is the basis for us to get a new body? Bhava Pratyaya. This is the basis. Bhava means to come down into form. Pratyaya means confidence. So we have, with this confidence on getting another form, another body. So Bhava Pratyaya. So these two type of people, they have this Bhava Pratyaya. Therefore, they cannot avoid to get into a body, to get into incarnation. So then, once again there is a discussion, there is a dialogue of always about, is there really a reincarnation or not? Many people, they always wrongly understand that reincarnation is something religious. There is nothing at all. Reincarnation is a scientific process. It has nothing to do with any religion. It is not a religious belief. You need not believe anything. It is not a question of belief or disbelief. It is a process. You see, if somebody says, sun rises in the east, then immediately you say, I don't believe. You need not believe. Why should you believe? It is a process which goes on every day. Sun rises in the east, sun sets in the west. This is a continuous process. Why should you believe it? Master said, to believe is very primitive. Don't believe anything. No need to believe. In the spiritual field, nobody asked you to believe. Don't believe. No need. You need not believe anything. You experience it. Sun rises in the east is experienced directly. Why should you believe? If I feel hungry, then if you say that you take some food, then your hunger will be lost. No, I don't believe that. Why should you believe? Take the food. If I say I don't believe, then you hang yourself. So, therefore, all this is, you see, what we call the physical properties are all illusion. The real properties are on the background, So, what is called is illusion or Maya, it is made of illusion. How can you explain this illusion? You just bring few threads made of cotton and you keep all the threads in a pattern and then you call it a cloth. I call this, I am wearing a shirt. Is it true? I call this a shirt I am wearing. Is it a shirt? Or is it a piece of cloth which is molded into a form to appear. And this form I am call it shirt. But is it, in its true sense, is it a piece of cloth or is it a shirt? It is a piece of cloth which is molded into particular pattern which is called shirt. If it is molded into another type of pattern, then you may call a pant. Same cloth, suppose, if the tailor has molded into different form to wear on the legs, then it is not called a shirt. So therefore, in its true sense, it is a cloth. So then where is the shirt? It is an illusion. Now, in the next stage, is it a cloth or is it a group of many threads put together in a pattern? Is it a cloth or are they threads? Yes, it is many threads which were arranged in a systematic manner and put together. This would what you call cloth. So cloth is an illusion, isn't it? So the threads are real. Once again, you take out the thread. Is it a thread or is it the cotton which is processed to appear like this form which you call thread? Yes, it is a cotton. So what you call thread now is illusion. Cotton is real. Don't stop there. Cotton, what you call cotton? What is it, this cotton? So it is substance made of the molecules of different elements like carbon and all these things. So is it cotton or the group of the elements? Molecules of the elements. Yes, these molecules. So then also you don't stop. So a molecule of carbon or oxygen So what is there? Then you go into the molecule, then what you see? You will see atoms. Okay. So is it ultimate? No. Still penetrate into it, go into it. Then you see electrons, nucleus, electrons, protons and all these things. Don't stop there, still go. What is there? Energy. What is energy then? Show it. The field of energy only. Yes? So therefore, all what you use in our daily life, ultimately you reach the same place. So your mind should be free and you should reach the truth. Before you reach the ultimate truth, you have many levels of temporary truth. Temporarily, you call this a shirt. Is it true or not? Temporarily, yes, but not ultimately. So we should know what is true, ultimate, and what is not ultimate, which is temporary. Both the things we can know. You can know this. What is true, what is untrue, and what is the background of this. What is the absolute truth then? The shirt is not the truth, is not reality. So the cotton is reality. That is also not reality. So all these things are on the background of something which you call the I am. That is the truth. So to reach that, you have to practice non-attachment. If you don't practice non-attachment, you will be blocked because of the conditioned truth. All the other things are conditioned truths. So you have to practice non-attachment. So therefore, what is the purpose of our living? By practicing non-attachment, you will be made to know the purpose of living. To experience this, to know the purpose of living, you have to know the laws of nature. All these things work according to the laws. So there are physical laws, there are social laws, personal laws, all these are different levels, there are laws. It is not LOSS laws, it is LAW law. You know. So this law, we have to know this law of nature and try to follow it. That is what we have to exactly do. For this we have to practice non-attachment or vairagya. So why should we practice vairagya? Is for this purpose. So then we will reach the truth, the ultimate truth. So that we have to. So what you know as truth, what you know as untruth, put together, form the background what we call the truth. You have to meditate this. What you call truth, what you call untruth. This is the sentence from the Upanishad. Satyam cha anrutam cha satyam abhavat. It means what you call truth, what you call untruth, put together forms the ultimate truth. We have to meditate upon this sentence. So, there are many examples given in the Veda, in the Vedic science, for these things, known examples from our daily life. So, when we want to enter into this Brahma Vidya, a spiritual path or spiritual science, we have to quit our mentality of finding fault with others. This is most important. As long as our mind is trying to find fault with others, we are away from this Brahma Vidya. We are away from our inner consciousness. We separate ourselves from the inner consciousness. So therefore, liberation means getting out of conditioning, self-conditioning. That is liberation. Moksha or liberation doesn't come from outside, from anywhere. Get out of your self-conditioning. Then you are liberated. And that is possible by this practice. All this practice is practice yourself, your mind, yourself. So, to attain this Brahma Vidya, and to attain this liberation, what is required is, you have to get into identification consciousness. You have to get rid of identity consciousness. As long as you are in the identity consciousness, thus you are separating yourself from others. That is what is called identity. So from this you have to shift to identification consciousness. Identify yourself with the inner light. Then there is no problem. So these are the terms used by Master Jwalpur in his teachings. What he taught to Alice Bailey or what he taught to Madame Blavatsky, in that he has several times mentioned this. So, you have to arrive at the oneness of all these things. How? For this, Master has given a wonderful example for us. There are three things. One is a block of ice, and another is a glass of water, a tumbler of water, and another is water vapor. These three. So, block of ice, water and water vapor. These three, are they different from each other or one? So there is one commonness in these three. So we have to arrive at the commonness. Physically they are different because their physical properties are different. If I throw a glass of water on your face, nothing happens. Only your face will be wet. If I throw a piece of block of ice, then what happens? You will be injured. But you know quite well that a block of ice, when applied some heat, will transform into water, and further it will be transformed into vapor. And again, if you condense that vapor, it transforms into water, and condense more, becomes ice. So, this we know quite well. Therefore, we can know the oneness. What is the common thing? Oneness. That oneness, what we see, that is what is called the Lord Indweller, the Lord Consciousness, the I Am. This is how we have to understand about the Lord Consciousness, about the one existence of one light, one consciousness, in all the beings, in all the atoms everywhere. So therefore, this mind is also created. You know, how? From where our mind is created? First, there is only space. You see, if you take the sequence of this creation, first there was only space, absolute space, unbound space, which you cannot conceive, the whole space. And then a part of that space is separated. A part of that space is separated. So this part of this ఈ డోర్ వేసి మధ్యలో డోర్ వేసి ఇది కూడా దగ్గర పూర్తిగా వేసి సౌండ్ రాదు. So how the mind came into existence is that space. A part of the space is separated. So space is having a space mind. You know, the space has the space mind. And then a part of this is separated. And from this part, which became a unit space, and from this unit space there is the formation of the 5 states of matter. And these 5 states of matter constitutes the form aspect of all the beings. Our bodies are formed like that, from this. So we have to meditate upon this. So space inside and space outside. When you meditate upon this, you will realize that the space outside is unbound space. Space inside is space which has an outline. Therefore, it is given a different name. That is what we call, for example, you have this room, hall. Before this hall is constructed, what is there? There is space. And in that space, this hall is constructed. Why there is space inside the hall? Because the hall is constructed in the space. So in the same manner, this is all, this unit space is called an egg, technically. In the Vedic science, how this in explaining the cosmogenesis, it is explained that first there is only unbound space, universal consciousness. And from that, there is formation of one unit space which is called the egg of the space. Just like how you find the egg of a chick, like that egg of a space, unit space. And into this unit space, all the properties start to work, to build up through different states of matter, to build up this form. That is how we got all this form aspect. So we have this physical body in the body of energy level, vital body, and the senses and the mind. So then who is the one who is born? All these are different parts which are born, but the one who has taken this is unborn. But he is born several times. So this is the key given in the Veda. So you can realize this from where we have come into existence. We have to meditate upon this. So for this purpose, we have to enter into the meditation, to enter into this contemplation, we have to first practice Vairagya. The real Vairagya, the higher Vairagya. That is why Patanjali has slowly is bringing us what is real Vairagya, what is the real state of Vairagya, non-attachment. Unless we practice this, we cannot conceive all this totality, all this real existence, we cannot conceive. Therefore, for this, we are expected to practice, and also constantly we have to practice this Vairagya, non-attachment. So then only we can understand what is meant by a matter and what is force and what is consciousness. So one is matter and force and consciousness. These constitute all these forms. So these are all the layers, you know. So there are 7 layers as such. One is matter, and second is force, third is consciousness, the fourth one is buddhi or faculty of discrimination, and the fifth one is purusha or the person, and the sixth one is the higher person. When you come to purusha or person, there are 3 aspects of the person, as explained also in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One is the person with all these attributes, with all these layers, and then the other person, which is called Parapurusha. Para is apara and is para. Para means the higher. And the higher to this is Paramapurusha. The 7th one is Paramapurusha, means the Purusha absolute, the person absolute. That is called Paramapurusha. And that plane of consciousness is called Satyaloka, the truth, the plane of truth. So, to this, now Patanjali is leading us to this, towards this light, inner light, through these aphorisms. So this, still we are in the 19th aphorism. Don't worry. You need not run fast from one aphorism to another aphorism. We have to realize what we have studied in the aphorism. We have to realize from our inner self, not just from outside. So a very systematic study with these examples is required. So now we conclude with this for this class. Once again, we lost 15 minutes in the starting. 15 minutes? No, less than. Yes, about 6 minutes. 6 minutes only. 6 minutes only we lost. Okay. We have not lost the subject. We are continuing the subject. So let us continue our next week. Thank you very much. Vasudeva.